Well, it's time to belly up to the bar and find out what's on tap this week at Brews with Brian. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Brews with Brian, your craft beer review podcast here on the Loaded Sports Network. I want to thank everybody for listening to the show again. Last week was a big hit. This week will be the same. Let's go ahead and start the show off, guys. What are we talking about this week? All right, guys, we got a special beer. Black Tuesday. Black Tuesday is a beer from the brewery out of California. And Black Tuesday is the most alcoholic beer I've ever had. This beer weighs in at a whopping 19.4% ABV, and it's an Imperial Stout. Now, 19.4% ABV is really, really high. 10% is going to knock you down if you drink a bunch of them. This thing right here will definitely knock you down. But it's an Imperial Stout. Let's go to the next picture. Take a shot of it in a glass. Again, drink all your craft beer in a glass. Just makes it a little bit better. This beer, one more thing about it, I wouldn't fill that glass that full. Uh, this is definitely a sipping beer. If you fill a glass anywhere near as full as the one on the screen here, I would definitely just be sipping on this thing probably for hours. So if you ever have a chance to try this beer, make sure it's in a small pour. I actually had this beer at a beer festival a couple of years ago, and they poured it into a sniffer glass, about 2 ounces, and that was all I needed. Uh, it had about a half an inch of head that bubbled up and on the side of the glass, receding into a thin collar of beige. The aroma is exquisite. It's full of strong bourbon aromas and licorice and fig that stings the back of the nose as it goes in. I love the aroma of this thing, guys, for sure. Now let's get to the taste. I mean, that's why you drink a beer. You want to see what it tastes like. This beer tastes, first thing you notice is chocolate, coffee, caramel, toffee, licorice, fig, char. This thing is very comparable to a Bourbon County Stout from Goose Island, uh, which is a world class stout. Try that one out if you can find it too. It's a little bit on the expensive side though. This beer has been barrel aged for a year, and it sure picks up that bourbon flavor. Uh, this is of my mouth in such a delightful way. It has a way of overcoming and washing over my taste buds, allowing me to pick up on a lot of its flavors. And it's got a little bit of spiciness to it. Actually, the first sip I ever had of this beer, it tasted like pure gasoline, which is not something you want. But that high ABV, you really can't help it. But sips after that, it was definitely, you could get the flavors and stuff that I just mentioned, and it was a really good beer. There's light carbonation and a medium mouthfeel, not too thin and not too thick and not too thin. But overall, I'm very impressed with this, and I'm glad I tried it at the beer festival when I did. Uh, this beer is for the mature drinker. This is the beer for a youthful grandpa. I mean, you could just imagine, some silver haired devil drinking this beer sitting in his recliner. So hey, everybody, it's Coach and Colonel here from the Spring Loaded Football Podcast, taking a short break from your podcast. We wanted to tell you about Spring Loaded Football, where each and every Friday we talk about Spring League sports, USFL, XFL, X League, fan control football, guys. We got it all. Coach, what you got to say?
Hey, y'all check us out. Like it, love it, and everything. We talk about a lot of stuff on here. We try to keep it quick and simple, and we talk about everything. Even some things like kickers.
That's right. Check it out, springloadedfootball.com. Now back to the show. And speaking of silver-haired devils, let's get on to our buddy Bill. We check in with Bill every week. He gives us his opinion on the beer, just as I have. And usually every week, Bill sides with me. But again, guys, Bill's a heck of a character. He's got some wild stories, and all of them are true, and it's hard to believe. But he's a close friend to everybody here at the Lotus Sports Network. Again, each week we see Bill here pouring the beer into the Brews with Brian mug. There you go, guys. Bill liked this beer too. Bill did tell me, though, to make sure you understand that 19% ABV, this thing is definitely something you need to be careful with. And again, we preach responsibility here on this podcast. So drinks, responsibly. Don't do anything stupid. We talk about this every week, but it's easy to be responsible. We're all adults here. We need to act like it. But guys, here we are again. Another big hit of the show. Still astounds me that this thing is popular. But here we are with another Brews with Brian bar trivia. The answer or the question from last week was, what was the most widely consumed alcoholic beverage in the world? And the answer is beer. Go figure that. A beer podcast, so it fits. But the question for this week is, how many 12-ounce beers are in a keg? Think back to your college days, guys. Do y'all know how many 12-ounce beers are in a keg? Well, we'll find out next week. Let's get rid of that right there. Well, guys, that's going to do it for this week's episode of Brews with Brian. I want to thank everybody for listening. The show continues to grow each and every week. Make sure you check out the video show on YouTube and Spotify. You can find the audio podcast anywhere you find your favorite podcast. But guys, that's going to do it for us here at Brews with Brian. And don't forget to stop back by. We're at Brews with Brian. Knowledge is always on tap.